Hello and welcome to the Bcamp podcast. I'm Richard Carey, and today we have with us Peter Schawacker, who is the CEO of Nearshore Cyber. So thank you very much for joining us, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
And to get started, Peter, can you just tell us a little bit about Nearshore Cyber?
Yeah, we're boutique cybersecurity services company based in Mexico and the United States. I'm located, as is my partner, in Oaxaca, Mexico. And we are pretty much the only sort of small-scale provider of cybersecurity talent for U.S. buyers in Mexico. We do
Very
other
cool.
things too, but I mostly did that today. Ask me again tomorrow, you might get a different answer.
Nice. And I'm curious, actually, how did you end up in Mexico?
This time, COVID refugee, was living in Brooklyn, tired of paying rent, not being able to go outside, and we found out that it was airborne and that outdoor dining was a workaround, and there's lots of it here. The best food in the world is Oaxaca. But I'd lived in Mexico City, and New York City at the same time. So this was my third attempt at Mexicanismo, and it's sticking. So, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. That sounds nice. A lot of delicious outdoor dining. It's hard to beat. So, Peter, maybe tell us a little bit just about your journey. How did you end up where you are? How did you start Nearshore Cyber? Yeah, let's go. Let's go there.
I started Nearshore Cyber because the kind of wasn't exactly digital nomad, but the foreign remote work deal was getting harder to get, and it was harder to find work at the level where I operate. And it's, part of it is ageism. Part of it is, you get closer to the tippy top of the pyramid and there are fewer seats and a lot more people gunning for that stuff. And for a long time, folks have told me, like, Peter, you just need to start a company. Like, you want to do things your own way, like, own it. And I had held off because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and I wasn't sure I was ready to suffer that way yet. And I realized that we were in a really good position. When I say we, my business partner is my wife, who's a Mexicana. My Spanish is lousy, and she makes up for some of that. But it occurred to me that one class of professional that I always admired was recruiters, the good ones. I really like recruiters. I think it's important work, and I'd seen some people do it as a sort of a side thing. I thought, well, if those people could do it as a side project, maybe I can do it. And what I found out was that they were losing money. They were losing money, and they, were well capitalized. They didn't let me in on that. But so we started Nearshore Cyber as a staffing recruiting company that was going to provide well-qualified cybersecurity talent from here to there. I had a really good network in the States. Nobody knew me here. But I started getting to know people, and I found out, like, if you do cyber, you better know English, because most of the literature, the technical documentation, the books, the podcasts, the videos, the courses, they're in English. So Mexico turns out to have a really pretty strong cybersecurity capability, if you want to put it that way. But what it didn't have was a strong community. Like, there are pockets of it. Like, there are conferences and stuff. Like, there's really good B-sides in Mexico City. There's a thing called Bcamp that happened a few weeks ago. There's a little ISSA, IC Square, that kind of stuff. But it didn't have the strength of community that the United States has built up. And so we decided to solve two problems. One, I needed there to be community. I depend on it. It's how I meet people. It's how I find people. It's how I find resources. It gives me something to invest in that's bigger than this. And the other is, I needed to be known. I didn't have a brand. Nobody knew who we were. And so we just started organizing events for free, courses for free, training for free. I love to teach. My parents were teachers, so I started teaching for free. And we did it all online because there's no IT in Oaxaca to speak of. A little bit, not much. And the result has been that we've tracked 4,500 people, mostly in Mexico, other parts of LATAM too. Like, we do business in Guatemala, Costa Rica, places like that. But we created the community that we wanted to be part of. And it continues.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm curious, kind of personally, How do you think about growth? Like, recruiting is kind of a two-sided network. How do you think about, growing your company, your value?
Yeah, growth is a necessity if you want to get your life back. So we do, I mean, recruiting is part of the business. We also do GRC, mostly around products like Drata, Vanta, Secure Frame, stuff like that. And fractional CISO, virtual CISO. We do incident response, which leads into that stuff. A lot of SOC 2, lots of SOC 2, and ISO and NIST. And we pivoted into that when the recruiting business went off a cliff about a year ago. It just disappeared in the end of Q3 2023. Didn't start to come back until about 8 weeks ago. Now we're ramping up talent pipelining and recruiting research. Like, we're working on a research report that we're going to call the Nearshore Cyber Quarterly, doing survey stuff on that. It's been a lot of fun. I love doing it. But for us, the only reason to grow is to create consistent stream of business and to be able to hire people so that we don't have to do all the work that we hate, right? Like, I hate business ops, right? I don't want to have to do that. So I got to hire somebody. How do I hire somebody? I grow, right? And then, eventually we'll probably just decide, all right, we're big enough, we're good, but we're not there yet.
Interesting. Maybe talk a little bit about your newsletter that's coming out. What types of data are you looking at? What types of questions are you trying to answer there?
The core is there are three questions we're always trying to answer for clients. One is, what kind of talent do you have here or there? They're there, we're here. What's the cost? And we see some samples of people who are available. Mm-hmm. And answering those questions is a pain. It's really hard unless you track it all the time. And we've been proud to, we've never posted a ghost job. Right? We only post things that are at least in the pipeline, and if we haven't landed the contract yet, we say so. Like, we don't have this one yet, but it's coming. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And it's just like, well, it didn't come through for us, so it doesn't come through for you. I don't like having to do that. So we had talked about running surveys, but we just didn't have the people to do it. And I finally just hunkered down and got Typeform, and I'm like, all right, let's do a survey and see what happens. And it turns out that because we built up all this goodwill by giving stuff away all the time, and showing that we really do care about the community and we really want to get people work and getting paid well, and then on the other side, find people resources and not gouge them. In other words, just giving people a fair shake, a fair deal. Pretty much everybody's been really happy to answer. People thank us for asking, which is really weird. But it just goes to show that if you care about community and you invest in it the way we do, and treat it like it really matters, people are happy to help. And so what my big goal is to solve a problem that everybody who's looked for a job or looked for people has had, which is nobody really knows what to charge and nobody knows what to pay, really. And so you wind up with these really awful cost negotiations that start with, well, how much do you need? And the candidate says, I'm not telling you because you're going to try and screw me. And then maybe you don't have a budget yet. That happens to me a lot. People come to me and they're like, what's it cost? I'm like, what do you need? And they're like, I don't know yet. Can you give me some numbers? And I'm like, I can't give you numbers because I can't recruit without that stuff. And they're like, well, I can't do a budget. I can't get budget approval until I know what it costs, and I can't get you recruit until I have a budget. So we all wind up wrapped around the axle every time. So the purpose of this is to say, all right, what is your bloody number to work for? Like, what do you want to get paid? Like, get off it. And then what are you willing to pay? Generally, what have you been paying? All right, here's some averages, here's some ranges, here's a breakdown by city, sell side, buy side. Make your budget. Get it approved. Call us. We have the intel. And by the way, I don't really have competition anyway. That's not how I see it. People want to work with us because they appreciate us. And they trust us because we'll tell them the bad news, which most people won't. And so I think it's just good for everybody.
Yeah, interesting, because there's just a huge lack of information in the market. So you're going to become sort of this benchmark.
Information asymmetry sucks. I mean to remove that, at least from our little chunk of the world. And we're going to do it. We're starting to already.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So maybe going back a little bit to just your overall growth, what do you view as the biggest challenges to growing to as big as you want to be? Do you have a number in mind, or like how do you, or are you just like, yeah, we'll know it when we get there?
No, I have a number, and it's 10 days in a meditation retreat, knowing that when I get back, the business will be fine. Like I did a couple of Vipassana retreats, these 10-day deals where like you turn in your phone and your car keys and all your stuff, and you're a monk for 10 days. Mm-hmm. And I really want to do one. So that's my goal. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk wants to buy the New York Jets. I just want to go on a 10-day meditation retreat. That's my aim, right? The very big goal, I have a 100-year project, which is to flatten the global cybersecurity labor market. And what that looks like is, and this is a true story. I interviewed this. It was probably like 25, but I'm 53. Like me, everybody under 40 is a kid. So he was this kid I was interviewing about an endpoint security thing, and I couldn't hire him. Like there's no way. But he reached out to me, and he's like, can I talk to you? I'm like, all right, let me do an interview with you, and I'll give you the feedback. And that's all I can do. I can't do business there. I'm not incorporated there. And so I'm talking to this kid, and I'm like, so how did you learn what, like he really knows his stuff. He's like, well, I got together with my friends, and we share resources, and we share books, and we get e-books and equipment, and we pull it all together, and we made a lab. And this is how we do endpoint security analysis and malware reverse engineering. And I'm already impressed. And as he's talking, the lights go out in what it looks like. It's a Adobe structure with nothing on the windows and the door. He gets up on, because he's on his phone, walks outside and continues talking like nothing happened. And it hit me like a bolt of lightning. If I had like 100 people like this, I could do the work of 100,000. This kid, and he was making like $5 an hour for work that in Chicago you get 80,000 for minimum. And I realized at that moment that my mission is to see to it that kid in Benin is making the same thing that the guy in Chicago is doing, all remote. It's all remote. And so that's what I'm working on. And it'll take longer than I have above ground, probably. I mean, I might make it to 130 if I'm lucky. I'm not going to see it. So what I'm trying to build is not something that's of a certain size. Yes, I want to take 10 days off. Yes, I would like to be able to like pay off the debts on this thing. Great. What I'm building is a machine and a kind of like ethos around it that is a certain cosmopolitanism and a sense of a drive to justice, economic justice, and embracing people for their differences, for the advantages that people have. Latin America, we have something similar where like there's a lot of adaptation to adversity and resource constraints. Like people can get stuff done with not much in the way resources. Much more than Americans who, a lot of Americans are struggling, but most of them don't realize what they have and what they could do if they made some choices and they realize the power that's in their hands. I mean, they have like fresh water, they have relatively safe places to live. And most importantly, if you look at what's happening with the AI revolution, generative AI revolution, like turns out, that Latin America is moving faster with generative AI development than the United States. Why? Because we all started with the same thing. We started 2 years ago with nothing. You can get the resources you need to learn how to do this stuff for free. The United States needs to watch out and catch up and help and collaborate across borders with countries that they don't know exist. So what do? We create stages. We create opportunities for people to show their stuff, to demonstrate the capabilities that they have, the attitudes that they have, the advantages in culture, and also like, it's not all, ice cream and orgasms and puppy dogs here. Like we have our problems for sure. But, on balance, if you concentrate on the good and elevate that, like the bad stuff, whatever. So we got narcos, who cares? You have Wall Street.
Yeah, which one's worse? Very interesting. Where my mind goes is, I guess, how do you measure this? And do you care if it's bringing the wages in the US down to meet Latin America? I guess the ultimate goal is to bring them up and like have the corporations pay out more. Do you have any thought around that?
Well, are you asking me if I'm a socialist? Because I am. No, I think that there is this problem. It starts with B and ends with billionaires or illionaires. I mean, like the wealth is taken by a very few small number of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, something happened in New York City yesterday that kind of reminded me of France in the 19th century. Like that problem's going to get sorted one way or the other. And the fact is that like either people are going to start getting starting to approach what the values they're producing, or they're going to have to take it.
Right.
Now, my job is not to rally a guerrilla force and take to the mountains. Like that's not. It doesn't work. And ultimately, you just wind up with you create a poison that gets used against everybody. What my job is to create peace, which sounds like hokey, but it's practical. What you do is you get people together who are normally not supposed to interact. Mexicans, Americans, Republicans, Democrats. Not that they're that different, but they think they are. They're not. Israelis, Palestinians, like Chinese people, Taiwanese people, take your pick, of people who are supposed to hate each other. They're supposed to. And point out that they care about pretty much the same things, right? And the way we do that is we talk about security, which I don't really care that much about anymore. I've been at it for long enough. It's boring to me. But it's interesting to a lot of other people. So I put them in places where they get to concentrate on something that's not their party affiliation or their ethnicity or what the language they came from or nationality. Like everybody forgets that stuff really quick. And the reason is it doesn't matter. As long as once they recognize it, that's it. And then, I'll tell you a little story. It was one time I was interviewing people in India for a security operations center build out that I was doing. And I talked to this guy and his son, who was probably like 6, shows up asking for something, as kids do. And he's like, oh, no, like, and the interview wasn't going well. I'm like, and I do what you're not supposed to do when you're recruiting, which is like give people direct feedback. I'm like, you're not qualified for this. Like, you're just not a good fit. Which people find shocking when you tell them the truth. And I do it every time. Because, like, nobody sues anybody for that. Like, the idea that there's some legal peril they're going to get in. It's like, this is my opinion. It is factually correct that I don't think you're qualified.
Mm-hmm.
You can argue with that. But, I get to pick. And you're not getting picked. So his kid comes up and he's like, look, not now. And I'm like, no. I put the headset on him. Oh, okay. What's your name? And I get his name. I forgot his name. How old are you? The usual stuff you say to kids when you don't know what to say. And I was like, your dad's pretty cool. Do you like your dad? He's like, oh, yeah, I love my dad. I'm like, yeah, he's really cool. All right, let me talk to him. And then I started talking to this guy, the candidate, about the trash problem in Oaxaca because we had a garbage strike, and they were telling everybody they need to compost. I'm like, I don't know how to compost. Like, not everybody's a yard, right? And he's like, yeah. Hey, I have a compost pile in a garden. Can I show it to you? I'm like, yes, you can. You can show me your compost heap. Because my mom I know what a compost heap is. I don't have one. And he takes his laptop out with a camera to show me his garden, which is exquisite. And so we talked a little while longer, and I'm like, again, I'm really sorry I can't help you. And I actually don't do India much very often because, it's hard. I don't. And he said, can I tell you something? I'm like, of course you can tell me something. He said, no one's ever talked to me this way before in business. I said, do you mean white people? He said, yeah. And it's because people's been so badly abused for centuries, first by the British and then by everybody else. And I realized this is the easiest thing. I really like this guy. I adore his kid, right? And so, I have this sofa back there, and there's that little yellow thing. My daughter gave that to me. She calls it the chupacabrita. That is her space. We are family business. And she can sit there anytime she wants, no matter what is going on. If I'm at a business meeting or whatever, or a podcast, it doesn't matter. It's hers. She just has to use headphones. I need to keep the music down or whatever. And so that's all we're trying to do is stop pretending that we're automatons.
Wow. That story is in some ways heart-wrenching and also interesting. I think the family business idea. So one of the reasons Bcamp is a side project for me. And one of the reasons I started it actually was to create eventually a business that I would, feel good about my kids working at, whether they actually work at it or not. But this idea of like not being an automaton and like caring about other people in business as well really resonates with me. So that's cool.
Well, it's all caring. I think it is. I think it's all caring. I was talking to somebody today, a prospect, who came to us about doing a SOC 2 preparation project. And we told them that, you're going to need to buy some software. You're going to have to buy, in this case it was Vanta, it's a partner of ours. And it was going to cost, the product was going to cost about 60% of the deal. 60% product, 40% our services. And she said, well, do we really have to buy Vanta? Like, could we get it by without that? I'm like, well, if you do, we're going to have to charge you 3 times as much. And by the way, I won't take that deal. What do you mean? I'm like, you're going to spend more and then you don't have a platform that you can use. Like, I won't sell that to you. It's not a good deal for you. I would make 3 times as much dough, but it's still not a good piece of business because it's not good for you. I won't take it. Someone else can take it. And they can do spreadsheets and whatever, but if it's not healthy for all of us, I won't do it. And she looked at me, she first like, you're crazy, and then she was like, oh, okay. Now, I might not get the deal, and that's fine. Like, but she or her people might come back to me in 6 months, and they probably will, and they'll be like, yeah, spreadsheets kind of suck, and you told us the truth, and you passed on an option that would have made you more money. Now, the reality is, I got 3 of those inbound today. So, this is what it comes down to. The way we do it is this. We have this community. We had to create it. We had to start it, and some things we're still starting. But we feed it. We invest in it. We feed it. We cultivate it. We water it. We protect it. Keeps going. We don't charge for it. And we do everything we can for free or close to free, so that we don't have to charge for it. And then every now and then, somebody hits me on like LinkedIn Messenger. This is actually the one I was talking about earlier. They came to the website. I don't know why, but they see something special, and what that is what people talk about values a lot, but they don't really even know what they are. What we value is the community, because the community takes care of us just enough, right? And it's 30,000 people who follow me on LinkedIn. 99.9% of them are not really in our community. They're just kind of around. But we just need a few people who get it, and we're good. We're good. We don't advertise. I hired a sales guy 2 weeks ago for the first time. And it was because I just don't like taking orders, and he's really good at saying, can we sell you something? I just forget.
Interesting. No, I love that. And I guess maybe last question is, I want to go back to your 100-year mission. And I'd be curious, where did that come from? Have you had to refine it, or was it like solid from the beginning and you've never varied from it? I'm just curious about the evolution of that, because you say it with such conviction, like it's been a truth, for the last 100 years as well. I'd just be curious about how you think about that.
I like to solve whole problems. I'm a radical and an entrepreneur, which might seem like they don't go together, but they absolutely do. I want to get to the root of the problem to solve the entire problem. And if I can't, fine, I'll work incrementally, because sometimes you have to. But, if you want to create actual justice and peace, right, and they go together, you got to solve the economic. And cybersecurity has given me the some of the resources necessary to do this by example. Now, here's the thing: like, I may never get there, you know, like, you know, Martin Luther King and quoting Moses or whatever. I may never get, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I was with you, and that's enough. I don't know anybody who'll be around in 100 years either. Well, actually, my kids might. They're young enough.
Yeah.
But it's worth it's worth a shot. I think it was like Chris Hedges has a wonderful saying. He said, actually, he was quoting somebody else. Chris Hedges has a voluminous memory, and he's great for the pithy remark. He said, "I don't fight fascists because I think I'll win. I fight fascists because they're fascists. I don't fight for peace because I think we're going to have it everywhere. We're going to get it. I fight for peace because it's peace, and you got to work for it." Right? I can try and create it in my own little nuclear family, but it ends at the door, and I have to leave here sometimes. And if I don't start building this here, they'll come to my door and take what I have. And I mean the people who want to take everything. And you see them now. You see them. I mean, the reaction in New York to that was an example. Someone who creates policies on behalf of a company that kills people, and somebody shot him. There's going to be a lot more of that. We all know it. Been talking about it all day with people do executive protection and other things like that. They're gearing up. And so the solution for those of us who do not want to be involved in such conflicts is find community who will create safety. Right now we do like get-togethers where we talk about security and stuff like that. But I fully expect people are going to show up at my door someday and say, "Hey, can I have a place to sleep?" They're killing us now. And I'm talking about trans people. I'm talking about LGBTQ people. I'm talking about people with, controversial beliefs. I'm talking about people who are going to go this way across the border and are going to want sanctuary. I better damn well be ready for them. What was I doing? And we could do it. We can actually do this. And hopefully it won't reach that point. But fascism is stupid, pretty easy to predict. We all know what's coming. We've seen it.
Yeah, I don't.
Chile, right?
Yeah.
It happened not in South America, Chile, Pinochet. Their political opponents were kidnapped, drugged, taken out in helicopters and dropped over the Pacific. I was talking to some really smart people the other day who'd never heard this, and did not know that, Kissinger and Pinochet were buds, right? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, world's kind of crazy place.
Yeah. It just means the stakes are higher than people realize. People need to get out in front of their TVs and see some of it sometime. Should come to places like Mexico. It's a wonderful place, wonderful people. Muy intenso, but great food, lovely people.
Yeah, well, I love that. And Peter, thank you so much for joining us. I think I had some insights here, just especially your story about the guy showing you his compost pile. Just reinforced to me that, and Bcamp is global as well, but that there's these inherent biases that we have that sort of like impede this mission of making everybody on the same playing field. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.